Look at me. I got Sonic action figures in my backdrop. I'm like Speed Super Sonic. Hey Ricardo, shout out. How you doing, buddy? But in all seriousness, I might do this more often when it comes to certain topics. I'll have certain action figures on my desk. How do you feel about it? Let me know in the comments. But anyway, hello, what's up guys? I'm Kyle from KGR, and I saw the Sonic movie opening weekend. I saw it Sunday night, and oh my god, I loved it. Like, I was fanboying throughout the whole movie. My girlfriend would vouch for this if she were here, but she's not here. In fact, after I'm done recording this, I'm gonna head over to her house. But point is, like, I had a fantastic time. I had a blast seeing this movie, and I can't wait to buy it on Blu-ray. But before I saw the movie, I did see reviews. I didn't see any bad reviews. I know, like, Nostalgia Critic, I think, didn't like it. But for the most part, I saw a bunch of reviews, like on IGN. I saw Speed Supersonic's review, and I saw a couple other ones, and they mostly loved it. And then, of course, we got audience reviews on, like, Rotten Tomatoes and stuff, and they absolutely loved it as well. But I did notice in the reviews, there were some nitpicks, like some criticism, but for the most part, they loved it. But when we first heard about this movie, or when we first heard about what the story was going to be about, we thought it was going to be generic. And then when we saw the first trailer, we thought it was going to be terrible. But thankfully, they fixed the design, and they did a complete 180. And the reviews turned out great. But it had me thinking, and Nick's Nerd Cave, like one of my friends, brought this up. The story would be the same, so he still had low expectations. And it also had me thinking, if they would have kept the old design, how would it do critically? Because for the most part, the voice acting, the story, and performances all would have been the same. The only difference would mostly be just how Sonic looked. So again, I loved the movie. A lot of people loved the movie, but it has me thinking, let's say in a weird dimension, they never redesigned Sonic, and the version of that we could have gotten in November could have been what we've gotten. How would reviews pan out if that was the final design? So the way I'm gonna make this scenario, like how I see the reviews personally, is like this. Let's say a handsome guy in high school gives a girl a rose or something on Valentine's Day. Cute girl, whatever. And she's like, oh my god, that's super sweet because he's so cute and that was so nice and all that stuff is a nice gesture. Now, let's say that story turned around by a unattractive nerd given the same exact girl, same rose. Same story, same scenario, but that girl found it creepy because it was from the nerd. Kinda messed up, but that's how I'm seeing the reviews. If Sonic looked like the old design and it was still the same final movie, I feel like reviews would have been a lot more harsh, and I'm not sure how it would have done financially. So in this video, we're going to be going over the criticisms that some people saw in the movie and some criticisms that I personally had with the movie, and stretch them out to make it a bad review for the so-called original design bad Sonic movie review. So again, like, I want to disclose before I get into this, I love this movie. I'm not saying this to milk this video to 10 minutes. I am making it abundantly clear, so I don't get hate in the comments saying, oh, like, wow, you fucking hate Sonic, you hate this movie, blah, blah. No. If you would have saw me in this movie, you probably would have thought there was something wrong with me. I was freaking out. But anyway, so I wrote down a few things. I'm going to go into how this movie could have been reviewed badly. And I'll go in depth on, like, how things would go and all that jazz. I don't know. You'll see it. So when we first heard about the movie, we thought it was going to be generic because we just heard that it's going to be a cop and Sonic teaming up together and learning how to be friends and all that jazz. And then we saw the trailer. And I kind of want to go into the story before I go into complete, like, how everything would have went. I personally like the story. Like, a lot of people complained about cliches that the movie does. For example, I'm going to compare this to something like Smurfs. I'm not saying that it is like Smurfs, but it does share a few things. But I do like their take. So we got a blue fictional character from a different world brought into the real world. Then they meet a human character. There's a human bad guy. And it just goes from there. Now, I do like what they do with the Sonic movie. I love what they do with Sonic's character, because I like how they mostly focus on his character and how he feels. And Jim Carrey's performance was great and all that jazz. But I know they said in the reviews how they fall under some cliches, but I felt like they would have said something like how it would have been so unoriginal and stuff like that, and it felt like every other, like, adaptation movie like to a certain franchise, like a video game or a cartoon or whatever. You probably would have emphasized on that first, because we all know IGN hates Sonic.
I think we're at the point where we need to admit that this was never really a great franchise.
Nope.
And
even though the Sonic movie did have its own little twist on it, I do agree, it does fall under a bunch of cliches. But that didn't stop me from enjoying the movie, though. I still had a blast. And it has me more excited for how the sequels are going to go. But anyway, let's get into the trailer, because this is where we saw Sonic's initial design. This is where we get to see the first impression of Robotnik and everything like that. So when we finally get to see Sonic, we see how he looks from behind, and we hear Gangster's Paradise, and then we see his face. First up, the face. Normally, let's compare this to Sonic Boom. When we saw Sonic Boom, when we just saw still images, we're like, wow, this looks bad. But then we saw it in motion, and it ended up being one of the better Sonic cartoons. And we loved all the performances, we loved the characters, and all that jazz. But I feel like with the Sonic movie, it's complete other way around. Like, when we saw it in motion, we thought it looked awful. And yeah, still images didn't look very good either. But then there were some promotional things that didn't look that bad. But for the most part, it just looked awful. Seeing it in motion did not help it much. At all. And the still images did just make it look worse. But again, there were some things that saved it a little bit, but not much. But anyway, so you see how Sonic looks, and he doesn't look great. And we also hear Gangster's Paradise, and nobody liked that. Personally, I like Gangster's Paradise, but not the original version. I like the In Fear and Faith version, because I like Screamo. Yeah, I like that shit. It's actually the first version of the song I ever heard, so I like that version as the definitive version of the song. Now, if they would have made Sonic thick, and they would have put in My Milkshake Brings All the Boys to the Yard, then we could have had a blockbuster. But no! We didn't get that. No. Sadly. But then we also see our first impression of Robotnik. Now, this is our first impression of Jim Carrey on the character, and it's not only our first impression from the trailer, but also in the movie, it's the exact same way. A lot of people were kind of mixed. Some people were like, oh my god, this is gonna be like the 90s version of Jim Carrey that we always loved as a kid. And then some people kind of found it a little bit over the top, or kind of annoying, or I don't know, obnoxious, maybe? I don't know, just trying to find words. So it was a mixed bag, but it turns out like Jim Carrey was great throughout the movie. I can imagine in the review saying like, we wanted a 90s throwback because we were going to see Sonic the Hedgehog, but instead we got a 90s throwback to Jim Carrey in his 90s performances. And that is what carried the movie. We all expected Jim Carrey to carry this movie. But no, because of the redesign, because of Ben Schwartz's excellent performance and his portrayal of Sonic, they coexisted extremely well and worked really well together. And again, it has me so excited for a sequel. So that'd probably be the one thing that like critics liked about the movie. But I feel like that first scene that we saw, that might be like a nitpick throughout the review. But for the most part, they would have just praised his work. But when it comes to Jim Carrey's look, and not just that, like also when it comes to the story in general, they probably would have complained how it wasn't completely faithful, which, to be fair, it's a live-action adaptation. It can only be so accurate to the game. But Jim Carrey has hair. Jim Carrey is not shaped like an egg. He's not fat or anything. Sure, later at the end of the trailer, we do see him with his shaved head. We see him bald with a big whiskery mustache. So he does end up looking more like that. But throughout the movie, that's not how it is. And I feel like they probably would have criticized that. But I know like people were kind of complaining about Sonic's blue arms. And like, oh, that's not like the original Sonic. But we got over it really quick, to be honest. We already complained about Sonic having two separate eyes. But again, we kind of got over it for the most part. It was easier to get over blue arms, but the eye thing, it wasn't as easy, I don't think. Like, they'd probably say some things like how the rings were used, how, like, Sonic doesn't use rings to teleport, which, hold up right there. Two things. One, the Sonic Mania trailer, we clearly see that. But let's just say it was people who haven't played Sonic Mania, people, let's say they only played the games on the Genesis. At the end of Green Hill, if you do well enough, you see a giant ring. You hop into that, what does it do? It teleports you to an all-new area that is the special stage or whatever for the Chaos Emerald. So if people are going to complain about that, then I can especially see IGN complaining about that then the comments would go crazy, just like when they said how the Sonic was never good.
This was never really a great franchise.
Nope.
And the amount of shit posting videos that could have been happening after that would have been fantastic. But suppose they don't even mention the ring thing, okay? Let's talk about Sonic's lightning special effects, I guess. I don't want to say he has the ability of lightning, but I feel like they'd bring it up and say something like how he's not the Flash. Now, I think it's fine. I think it's a great effect. And I'm excited to see how Supersonic's gonna go. Imagine all the lightning from that. But I thought he looked great with the lightning, all effects around him. And I don't know. That's just me. I think it looked good. I think a lot of people thought it looked good. Is it faithful to the source material? No. But I think it looks fine and dandy to me. Now, I don't know how many takes for this video. I think I went over Jim Carrey's performance. Again, like we got the Ace Ventura. We got the 90s stuff that we've gotten that we already loved. Ben Schwartz, on the other hand, I'm not sure how they would feel. Because again, like the voice acting would have mostly been exactly the same from what I'm aware of. But we're seeing Sonic as is being performed. The voice acting for Sonic, I thought was great. In fact, I think Ben Schwartz makes an excellent Sonic the Hedgehog. Do I want to see him replace Roger Craig Smith? Possibly. But Roger Craig Smith in the Sonic Boom cartoon was fantastic. Ben Schwartz in this movie was fantastic. But the game directors might be different, so they can make Ben Schwartz sound bad in that game probably. I don't know. But anyway, I thought Ben was fantastic, but because we're seeing an ugly Sonic do all these things, like him having so much high energy, being so hyper, in the reviews I did hear a little bit of criticism about like how he's constantly on the move and how hyper he is and all that stuff. Especially the flossing from Fortnite. If they would have kept that in the movie with the old design, I felt like throughout the movie, I suppose we're watching the whole thing and we're just like cringing, like the way Sonic looks, ugh, it's so ugly. Why is this a thing? And then when you see him flossing, you're like, oh no! Oh! Alright, so you heard a lot of reviews how Sonic felt lonely throughout the movie and you felt bad for him. If Sonic were to look the way he would have originally, I think everybody would be all like, no wonder you're freaking lonely. Everyone thinks you're ugly.
Excuse me, sir. I hope my horrible ugliness won't be a distraction to you.
Not at all, boy!
And of course Eggman wants to dissect you and kill you because they want you off this thing. You're ugly.
Am I ugly?
My eyes! My eyes!
But anyway, I feel like they probably would have nitpicked really hard about him, his hyperactive energy and all that stuff. Again, with this new design, I think it works really well, especially with the new animations as well. But with the original, it probably would have been tough to bear. And I feel like they also probably would have picked on James Marsden as well. Now, I thought his performance was fine. In fact, I love the fact that it's not a generic as this adaptation of, oh, I'm in a different world, help me get back. We also see oh, I want to try to get the girl, and somehow the character helps. No, he's already married. He's already wifed up. Good. So thankfully, we skip that cliche. I'm very thankful for that. But I thought his performance was fine, but I can imagine them bringing up stuff like Hop, because they already do that already. But I can imagine them saying something like how it felt awkward, because they just overthink of him just performing to nothing or a dummy or something. Just the fact that he's talking to a fictional character that doesn't exist yet. They'd probably just bring that up and, I don't know, just really be critical about that. Just be like, it's cringy. I don't know, I can't really think of anything for this one. Or it would have felt like it was just bland, like a bland performance. I also wrote down here about a Sonic 06 / Sonic X all over again. I can't remember exactly why I wrote that down, but I'll try to come up with a general idea. So, I guess it's because of like Sonic mostly interacting with human characters and how like people just hate that. But at least Sonic doesn't have a crush on a human person, so thank you Sonic 06 for being a bad example so we don't see that in a movie. Maybe? But I think I wrote it for Sonic X mostly because Sonic and a human character are really emphasized, and people didn't like that about Sonic X. Nobody liked Chris Thorndike. But thankfully, Tom and Sonic worked in my opinion. But then again, I also did really enjoy Sonic X, so I'm not sure how well my opinion really counts. But I feel like for the next movie, it's definitely going to take place more with Sonic's world, like interacting with other characters that are also CGI or whatever. I don't think it's going to really emphasize on Sonic and Tom's relationship all too much. In fact, I think Sonic's going to have a hard time like disconnecting. Like suppose they go back to Green Hill Zone and Sonic has to leave Tom. I feel like that's going to be a terrible breakup for him because that was his first real friend. But I don't know. I'm excited to see how the next movie goes because that's definitely going to happen. It has to happen at this point. Cliffhanger at the end. I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm pretty sure if you're on Twitter, you got spoiled anyway. And plus, apparently, Jim Carrey, and I forget the writer's name. God, crap. Everyone's going to hate me for that one. The point is, they've talked about it. They're already like talking about what it's possibly going to go. I hear about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson possibly being Knuckles. Honestly, I see it. I think it could definitely work. But again, we'll see where it goes. But it looks like that's all I got to really say about the movie. Now, let's come up with a rating, since it's talking about a fake review. I would say a 4 or a 3. 3 the least, 4 the highest, maybe. Or maybe 5. Maybe 5. The story would have been the same. They probably would have felt bad for Sonic a little bit. But they probably would have thought the story was bland, the design looked bad. They probably would have found Jim Carrey mainly being the highlight of the movie. And they'd probably do a fast reference and running reference of running away from the film. Running away from the theater, I guess. I don't know. Just stay away from the movie. But it also has me thinking, how would it do financially? Part of me wants to think, oh, because of the Sonic IP, a lot of kids will want to see it, and a lot of people also want to see it because it's probably very cringy. They're probably curious. But I also want to think the same way as Cats. Cats was a financial failure because it did look bad. They even fixed it up a little bit and re-released it. Still did kind of bad because people love the musical. I don't know how the story is compared to the musical. Like, I don't know how the movie story is compared to the musical. But I still would have seen the movie, even if it would have had this bad design. But I wonder how many people would have seen it anyway, out of curiosity. I think it would have been close to making its money back, like, when it comes to production. If not, maybe surpass it a tiny bit, maybe. At least from its original budget. Not from, like, I don't know how many million they invested to fix Sonic's design. I think it would have just broke even. And again, I'm not going to spoil, but the post-credit scene, I really want to see how that would have turned out with the original design. Whew. Or if it would have even existed to begin with. That's also a point. But that is what I think. How could it possibly have gone? It had such a bad hand dealt. It had so many things going against it. It could have been so bad. But I am thankful that it turned out so great. Now, some people are probably comparing this to Detective Pikachu. So I kind of want to throw in my 2 cents on that as well. I personally was fanboying throughout Detective Pikachu the whole time as well. And I bought it on Blu-ray day 1. I loved that movie. But it has me thinking, what did I enjoy more? I felt like the acting in Sonic was better. Like, that's not much of a comparison. There were some cringy moments in Detective Pikachu, I'm not gonna lie. Visual effects, I felt like it's pretty even because they both looked fantastic. But what do I like better? What got me more excited? I felt like when it comes to the excitement, I felt like Detective Pikachu did a better job of getting me hyped throughout the whole movie because there was so many different Pokemon. Like, sure, we saw Pikachu, but we also saw, like, Mr. Mime, we saw Charizard, we saw so many more Pokemon throughout the movie. So seeing them, like, fully made into this movie, like, completely remade, had me so excited throughout watching it. Because I got surprise after surprise after surprise. While with the Sonic movie, it was just Sonic. Like, sure, we saw Green Hill Zone, we see Baby Sonic, and we see Sonic grown up, but for the most part, that's it. Sure, the references were great too, but it didn't have me, like, in awe so many times like the movie did. But Sonic didn't have me in awe like Detective Pikachu did. But I did have a fantastic time throughout Sonic, but it wasn't a constant, like, wow after wow, like with Detective Pikachu. So I think Sonic's a better movie, but I think Detective Pikachu just shocked a lot more people because I felt like it catered to a lot more people. Maybe, I don't know. Actually, I'm not sure about the catering part. I might take that one back. I don't know. It's a tough call, to be honest. But anyway, that is my take. That's how I feel how it could have been. Let me know in the comments, how do you feel about the movie, and how do you feel critics could have taken it if it were to look bad? Would you have seen it if it still looked like the original design? That comment section is there for you, and I'm a small channel, so I'm going to read all those comments. So if you're new and you like what you saw, you know what to do. In the description, there's like Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter. So if you add me on all those, that'd be freaking phenomenal. And I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. And that's all I gotta say. So, guess I'll see you on the next one. So, peace.